we are going to deal with the fourth vision. But before we do that, I want to ask you, I want to tell you a story and then ask you a question. How many of you have ever had a dream where, well, let me tell you my dream first. So, and this is a pretty recurring dream. I haven't had it in a long time, but I used to have it all the time. And this was the dream. I was back in school. Usually I'm around middle school age. I don't know why I'm around that age, but I'm in middle school, and it is the day that we're all supposed to give our speeches. Now, I didn't even take speech in middle school, so I don't know how it all gets jumbled together. But I was in junior high, and I was sitting, and it was speech time, and people were giving their speeches, and finally the teacher calls my name, and I stand up, and I walk up to the podium, and everyone in the class begins to erupt with laughter. And you can feel it in your dreams. You know how when you have dreams and you feel it, right? So I'm feeling in this dream embarrassed. I'm like, why is everyone laughing? And I'm trying to figure out why they're laughing, and I come to the conclusion it's because I'm wearing nothing but underwear. I'm standing in front of the class, and I have to present. How many of you have ever had a naked or underwear dream where you're in front of people? It is a common dream. That's why everybody talks about the fact that, it's kind of a joke that this is a dream that people have. And it's because people have it so often. And here's why it's a common dream for people, is that people have a fear of being unprepared. You ever had a dream about going to school and realizing there was a test that day and you're not ready for the test, you haven't studied? I have a dream where I go back to college and I take classes in college, but I haven't gone to math class all semester. And I realize that I've got a final, and I show up for my final, and I'm not ready. I have no clue what it's about. I have nothing. It's this sense of not being prepared. It's a sense of being, quote unquote, metaphorically underdressed, right? You're not ready for this thing that you're supposed to be ready for. And we all have to be prepared for stuff every single day. Did you know that? Every single day, every one of us has to be prepared. We do things to get prepared. If we don't, then things are going to go wrong real quick. Okay? You don't put on clothes to go to school, things are going to go wrong real quick. Okay? Real quick. If you don't study for your exam, things are going to go wrong real quick with mom and dad. This is true for our physical everyday lives. It is certainly true for our physical lives. If we think that we are going to go through life and that God, after coming to Jesus, God is going to make things easy and God is going to make everything a picnic, and then we start living that Christian life and we find out that it's not, and we thought God was, and we weren't prepared for the actual reality of the Christian life, then what's going to happen is things are going to get really hard and things are going to go wrong really quickly. And let me tell you what has happened to people that I know personally that had this idea that God was just going to work everything out for them. There was a young man who used to go to this church. He used to sit in this very room. Okay? He used to sit in this very room. And he talked the talk. As far as we were concerned, he walked the walk while he was here. But he left here and he went to the Air Force. And he was engaged to a girl before he left. And he went to the Air Force. And when he got to the Air Force, he didn't get the job that he wanted in the Air Force. And then his girlfriend, who ended up becoming his fiance, ends up calling off the engagement. His father constantly was a failure in his life for him. And all of these things bombarded him. And he was not prepared for the actual physical, spiritual Christian walk with God. And today he doesn't even believe God exists. Now let me ask you a question. Is it because God doesn't exist? Is that why he went through the hard stuff? No. What happened is that in his mind he thought, wait a minute, if I'm living for God, then God should just work out everything for me. Things should just be easy. Listen, guys, God never promised us that things were going to be easy. Never. Jesus What David taught? Take up your cross, follow me. That's the command. Take up your cross, follow me. That's the stuff we suffer for following Christ. But then there's stuff we suffer because we're human beings. You don't get the job you want in the Air Force. You got a crappy relationship with a parent. Your girlfriend, your fiance, your boyfriend, somebody fails you, somebody lets you down. And look at me, if you're not prepared for the reality of the spiritual life, then things are going to go wrong real quick for you. And I don't want you to leave here one day and abandon the gospel of Jesus Christ because you weren't prepared. This chapter, chapter 8, is the fourth and final vision that Daniel gets. And it is about God letting Daniel know hardship is normal. It's a part of everyday life. It is a battle you're going to go through constantly. And there is a war to be fought. But you can be prepared. You can be ready for that battle. You can be ready for that war that is coming. So if you have your Bibles, turn to chapter 10 of Daniel. Did I say chapter 8? I don't know why I did that. I don't know why I'm just now thinking about the fact that I said that. Chapter 10 of Daniel. Now, we're not going to read the entire thing for the sake of time, but I want to start off, which is a great place to start, I heard. To start at the very beginning, it's a very good place to start. At least that's what I have heard in a movie. Verse 1. In the third year of Cyrus, king of Persia, a word was revealed to Daniel. Now listen to this. That is very important. This first point I'm calling the weeping and mourning. Okay, the weeping and mourning. And the reason why I'm calling it that is because if you look at verse 2, it says, in those days I, Daniel, was mourning for 3 weeks. Daniel was going through a period of mourning. And the date of when this vision comes to him is very, very important. It is the beginning of the new year. It's the beginning of the Jewish New Year in the third year of King Cyrus of Persia. Remember, Babylon falls. The Medes, Persians come together. They take over Babylon. Babylon doesn't exist anymore. Now it's the Persians. And in the third year, remember, who is it that makes the proclamation that Israel's going to get to go home? Cyrus. Remember, God told him, 70 years you're going to be in captivity. But in 70 years I'm going to let you go. Cyrus comes in, and Cyrus decrees, I'm going to let you guys go. Now, that was a little over 2 years earlier than chapter 10. Israel has been let go. At least the first wave has been let go. They left in waves. They left in groups. The first group has already gone back to Israel. And what they did when they got there is the very first thing they did is they built the altar in where the Holy of Holies would be. They were going to start in the middle of the temple and they were going to work their way out. Okay? They were just living in tents. And they built the altar. But they couldn't continue the progress because neighboring nations were attacking them. For 70 years, Israel hasn't been in this land. And now all of a sudden they show back up, thinking, this is our land, and we're going to build our temple, and we're going to build our walls, and we're going to build our city. And the neighboring enemy said, no, you're not. And so they begin to attack over and over and over and over again. And Israel is being bombarded with this attack. That's why it says in verse 1, and the word was true, and it was a great conflict. Because from the moment of this being sit back until this point, there has been nothing but conflict. And this whole vision that we're going to read next week and the following weeks in chapters 11 and 12, it is all conflict. Future conflict for Israel. So because of the state, can you imagine what Israel thought was going to happen? Israel thought, Cyrus is going to let us go. We're going to go back to Israel. We're going to rebuild the altar. Then we're going to rebuild the Holy of Holies. Then we're going to rebuild the entire temple. Then we're going to rebuild the entire city. They get there with all these expectations. Right? And they were not prepared for the actual life that they were going to have to live in order. And so this breaks Daniel's heart. Daniel, for 2 years, they haven't been able to build anything. And just to let you know, they don't get to build anything for 15 years. More years. That 15 years they're off of building. Until Nehemiah shows up and God tells Nehemiah, here's what we're going to do. We're going to build the wall around the city first. That's what we're going to do first. We're going to build a wall around the city for protection. Then we'll worry about the temple and the houses and all that other stuff. But for 15 years, and these first 2 years, it is breaking Daniel's heart because Daniel, an old man at this time, is thinking, I thought we were going to go back and everything was just going to be great. And so he is in deep mourning. Verse 3 says, I ate no delicacies, no meat or wine entered my mouth, nor did I anoint myself at all. There was oils that they would put on their skin. He doesn't do any of that. He doesn't worry about his physical self right now. All he is focused on is this spiritual prayer and fasting and weeping and mourning and beseeching God. Again, we're not surprised Daniel's doing this. This is a guy who every single day for three times a day would go and he would face Jerusalem and he would pray, oh God, take us back. Fulfill your promise. Take us back. He's brokenhearted that when they started going back, it wasn't what they thought it was going to be. Second thing I want you to see is at the end of this period, so it's the very beginning of the year, he does it for 3 weeks on the 24th day of the new year. Right? So this would be like our January 24th, right? Okay? On the 24th day, he was standing by a river and he lifted up his eyes and he saw a heavenly being. Okay? Now, this heavenly being, it says he saw a man. Do you see that in your text? It says he saw a man. Okay? This was not a human being. In fact, this is Old Testament language. Often they would refer to angels as one that looks like the children of man or one that it looks like a man, because often the angels would take the appearance of human form when they showed up to humans, right? So he's basically saying this heavenly being has come to me, and this heavenly being looks like a man, but he's not a human being. And you would say why he's not a human being is because look at all the descriptions of this guy. First, it says that he has a gold belt around his waist. Then it says that his body is made of beryl. This is a crystal. An example of this kind of crystal, an emerald would be a beryl crystal. There's multiple kinds, and they can be different colors: yellow, green, kind of an orange color. His face was like lightning. Now, I don't even know. The only thing I can think of is that it's just shining bright, right? You're in the middle of the night, lightning strikes, the whole sky's lit up. That's the only thing I can think. His eyes were like flaming torches. His arms and legs were like bronze. Now, let me tell you something. This ain't just a man that showed up here. This is a heavenly being that has shown up. And I want you to understand that heavenly beings, I don't believe this is the Son of Man. I do not believe this is Jesus himself. Okay? This is a messenger. But listen to me. Heavenly beings do not get their glory from themselves. They get their glory from God. So the reason why this heavenly being has a gold belt and a body that looks like crystals and face like lightning and eyes like torches and legs and arms like bronze is because he is radiating the glory of God. The glory of, he's reflecting for Daniel the glory of God. And then it says the sound of his words were like the sound of a multitude. Now that is, I can just imagine a movie, right? Where when he speaks, it's just this voice that goes out like a great multitude all shouting at the same time. The authority that he has. Again, authority that's been given to him by God, but the authority that he has. And I think it's hilarious. There's this little statement in here that I find really interesting. It says and I, Daniel, alone saw the vision. So they don't actually see this heavenly being. But it does say that the men who were with him did not see the vision, but a great trembling fell upon them, and they fled and hid themselves. So, while this heavenly being only shows up to Daniel, it so permeates the entire area that it freaks all the men out and they run and hide. I think about when Jesus got baptized, right? I think it was Jesus. Where there was a time where God spoke, but they didn't hear. It just sounded like thunder. Yeah, well, that happened with Saul when Saul sees Jesus, and God saves him and calls him to be an apostle. The same kind of thing is happening here. Like, they don't actually see it, but it's so permeating the whole area. The glory is that these guys get freaked out and they got around him. And then look what Daniel does. It says that Daniel says he falls on his face and he loses all strength. He just collapses onto the ground. And this heavenly being has to touch him to give him strength to just get up on his hands and knees. It just absolutely floors him. And you know, man, I don't have time. Okay. Now, I want to talk about this heavenly being for a minute, okay? The Bible talks about heavenly angelic beings, and they are absolutely a hierarchy. Okay, listen to me. There are high-ranking angels, and there are lower-ranking angels. They have different jobs and different responsibilities. We see this all throughout the Bible. Ranking angels being ranked, given certain positions, given certain jobs. I believe this heavenly being that Daniel is seeing is a very high-ranking heavenly angelic being. Okay? This isn't one that's just, in other words, I think he's ranked higher than Gabriel. Gabriel just comes along, and while Gabriel's shining bright, Gabriel just delivers a message. But Mary goes back and forth and talks to Gabriel. This one shows up, and Daniel collapses on the ground. The glory of God is so bright on him that he just collapses as if dead and needs to be brought back up. Angels are heavenly warriors of God. These angels are given greater or lesser amounts of power and glory to accomplish God's purposes, and I believe that's what we have here. But then I want you to see this third point. The message gets delayed. This is really interesting. In verse 11 it says, he's talking to him and he's saying, I've been sent to you. So I've been sent by God to you, Daniel. And then he says this. Verse 13. The prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days. So in other words, as soon as you prayed, God sent me. I was on my way immediately, but I ran into a spiritual battle coming to you, Daniel. And for 21 days, the whole time you prayed, I was in a battle with the prince of Persia. Now we're going to talk about what the prince of Persia is all about. Now, follow me here. This is really, really important. Okay, this is a big concept. When Satan, when Lucifer rebelled against God, what percentage of the angels fell with him? 1/3. So 1/3 of the angels fell with Lucifer, with Satan, all right, and were cast to the earth. Now listen. All kinds of angels fell. High-ranking ones fell. The whole gamut fell. So that means even the demonic forces are not just this monolithic, they're all demons of the same sort. No, even the demonic realm has a variety of powers. all right, and the evil forces. And here's what I believe the Bible teaches. The Bible teaches us that Satan, who is the prince of the power of the air, he is the god of this world, right? As soon as he was cast down to earth and Adam and Eve sinned and fell, he set up shop on earth. He set up dominion on earth. He sent his demonic forces over lands and over peoples and over groups. And so what happened is that there is a demonic being that is the demonic being in the spiritual realm that is over the dominion of Persia. This prince of Persia, this is not a physical human being. This is a demonic spirit that is over Persia. He has dominion over Persia. All right? For instance, I don't believe for one second that the god Baal in the Old Testament, I do not believe that there is a real God named Baal. Okay, no such thing. I do believe there is a spiritual demonic force, right, that was behind the false worship of Baal. So think about it like this, okay? This is how I think about it. In that time period, there's demonic forces that are over the Midianites. There's demonic forces that are over the Philistines. There's demonic forces that are over the Amalekites. There's demonic forces that are over Persia. There's a demonic force that was over Babylon. There's a demonic force. And within, think of like an army, there is some spiritual being, demonic, that is in charge of the devil's plan for Persia. That's this prince of Persia. So when this angel, this heavenly being, is sent by God to get to Daniel, he runs into the most vile, powerful angel going at the time, a demonic power going at the time, because Persia is the most powerful nation in the world right now. So it's the dominion over it is going to be a powerful demonic dominion. And this angelic being runs into him. And for 3 weeks he tries to get to him. And he doesn't until Michael shows up. And Michael begins to fight that demonic force. And it frees up our heavenly being to get to Daniel. Right? It's almost like tag team, right? They're fighting. Michael shows up, slaps Michael. Michael jumps in, begins to fight the prince of Persia. And he gets to Daniel. Okay? We're going to talk about this a little bit more detail. Look at what the heavenly being tells Daniel he has come for. Verse 17 through 21. By the way, 2 more times Daniel falls down and loses all strength and can't talk. So it's like every time what happens is the angel shows up and Daniel hits the ground and he's out. Angel touches him, lifts him back up. The angel talks to him. Boom, down goes Daniel again. Touches him, lifts him up, talks to him again. Boom, he goes down again. This happens 3 times. It's like every time he gets a little bit, he can't handle it. He just collapses. And the heavenly being touches him and lifts him up. But look at this line. I love this line. Verse 20. Do you know why I have come to you? Do you know why I've come to you? That is in verse 20. Do you know why I've come to you? And then look at verse 21. I will tell you what is inscribed in the book of truth. I want you to think. I will tell you what is inscribed in the book of truth. What does that mean? What is the book of truth he's referring to? I have 0 doubt in my mind that it is the sovereign plan of God written down. Not physically written down, but it is inscribed and written by God. This is God's plan. He says, I am coming to you to tell you the book of truth. Here's what's going to go down. Listen, when God tells the future, he is not predicting the future. Prophecy is not God predicting. It is God telling you what he's going to do. God's not looking in the future and going, okay, I see what's going to happen, now let me tell you. No, it's God saying, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. Here's what's going to happen because I'm in charge of it. It's written in my book. By the way, this book of truth goes all the way to his second coming, as we saw last week. Now, look at what he says in verse 19, or verse 20. He says, I will return to fight against the prince of Persia. So listen to what he says. I'm going to come to you. I'm going to give you the vision that's inscribed in the book of truth. I'm going to come and give you God's plan. I'm going to come and give you what God's going to do. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to go fight the prince of Persia some more. There is a spiritual battle that I've got to go fight once I give you this vision. So I'm going to give it to you in verses 10 and 11. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to go fight this demonic force once again. And then he says, and after I fight the prince of Persia, behold, the prince of Greece will come. Guess what that means? There's a demonic force that's lying just outside on the wings, just waiting to build up strength to come and enter into the story. And by the way, look right here. Remember our four beasts in this first vision? Babylon, Medes, Persians. Our heavenly being is fighting the prince of Persia. But eventually, the Persians fall to the Greeks. And our heavenly beings say, now I gotta get ready because I'll be fighting the Greek demonic forces next. You see, behind the system of this world, behind the nations of this world are demonic forces. Now, I'm gonna say something, and I want you to hear me in context. Okay? Please listen to this. There has never been a nation that has ever existed besides the nation of Israel at the beginning when it was established. There has never been a nation that did not have demonic forces behind it fighting for dominion or even having dominion in it. And that includes the United States of America. You know how I know that? Because when we started this nation, we had 10 million Africans that we enslaved. Now you tell me demonic forces weren't behind that. Absolutely they were. That is demonic as demonic gets. That is wicked as wicked gets. This nation and every other nation, because they are all fallen nations, have demonic princes that Satan has put dominion over. Now, listen to this. There is one nation. There is one nation. Which, by the way, Israel eventually began to give way, didn't it? Israel started off with just being God's our God. That's it, just Yahweh. Did they stay that way? No, what did they do? They ran and they began chasing after the false gods. They began chasing after these demonic forces. So there has never been, from the beginning of human history to this very moment, there has never been an earthly nation that did not have the princes of darkness coming in, swooping in, and taking dominion. But listen to me. When Jesus died on the cross, he bought a holy nation. Listen to this. He bought a holy nation. Do you remember the 70th week? The week from Christ coming until the second coming? Guess what he's doing? He is bringing in, during that entire period, he's gathering up his holy nation. He's saving people and he's bringing them in. And guess what? I got the chills. My hair's just standing straight up. If this nation that God bought, Satan has nothing to do with it.
That's right. Amen.
There is not the weakest demon that has 1 ounce of dominion. Not 1 foot, not 1 yard, not 1 millimeter of dominion over this holy nation, which is the people of God. Not 1. Now, let me tell you what's happening. What's happening is we've got to be prepared because God is using us to go and free up the earth. Now, please listen to me. Listen to me. Please listen. We are the holy nation of God, right? Yes. The Holy Spirit dwells within us. We are the ones that God is using to make this earth brand new. But everywhere we go, every place that we go to, guess what is there battling against us? The demonic forces of Satan. Demonic forces of Satan have strongholds. They've built up a quote-unquote city over areas. And what we do is when we come in with the gospel of Jesus Christ, it's like this dark city gets shot through with light. This dark valley gets shot through with light because of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Let me give you a perfect example. Listen, this is so crazy. The very land we're standing on right now, we've taken it. We've taken it. We came before any of us were alive. Well, I mean, some of the older adults were. When Chandler Drive Baptist Church decided that they were going to move properties to come over here, they bought this land, and before they ever built on it, you know what they did? They prayed over it. Lord, this is your land. We're taking this land for you, and we're going to build on it, and we're going to make it a church, and we're going to do gospel stuff right here. And then we started building buildings on it. We came with the gospel of Jesus Christ, and we said this place right here is going to be shot through with light. Now, Mesquite, as a whole, there's strongholds over it. Garland, there's strongholds over it. Dallas, there's strongholds over it. But you know what? There's people of God in Mesquite and Garland and Dallas. And if you were looking down on it, guess what you would see? You would see this darkness, and you would see these lights just being shot up straight from there. That's us. The church of Jesus Christ that are meeting all over the place. The darkness is being shot through with light. And everywhere we go, we're shooting the light of the gospel in these places. And the devil has to flee from us because he has no power. The blow was struck at the cross. Jesus came and Jesus said, I'm going to die. And guess what the Father's going to do? The Father's going to, shall I go back to Daniel 7, the Son of Man? All dominion was given to who? To Jesus. That means all of these places that Satan has dominion right now, the final blow has already been struck. The knockout punch has already landed, and the devil's just wobbling around with weak knees, ready to go down. And when Jesus comes back, all the darkness is gone, and the entire earth will be under the rule and reign of Christ and his bride, and that's us. Now, guys, we are in a battle right now, so we got to be prepared. Satan's not just going to sit back and go, I'm just going to give up my property voluntarily. No, we're going to take it with the gospel. We go with the gospel of Jesus Christ and we take it. And we say, Satan, you got to know. I think about what we do on Thursdays over here at this public school. I want you to think about this. In that school, Jesus Christ cannot be taught. They don't have a class where the Bible's going to be open. All right? And so what we're doing is we're going over to that property and we're marching into that cafeteria and we're saying, devil, whatever stronghold you think you got in this cafeteria, nah. The gospel is going to be preached in this room, and a light is going to be shining out of this place. And any Christian teachers, right, their little desk is just shooting a beam of light straight up because the church is there too. When we go to the abortion clinic, guess what we're doing to that evil, dark place? We're bringing light. We're bringing light. And we're going to fight that battle, and we're going to be prepared. And we're going to do it until we're dead. We're going to fight until we're done, or until Jesus comes back. And here's the good news, guys. Here's what Daniel's taking from this vision. Daniel, God can't lose. He's a warrior God. He fights on behalf of his people. God can't lose. So Daniel, God's people can't lose. Church, we can't lose. We cannot lose. We win. Listen, the book of truth that he preaches from, right, that the vision comes from, we get to read the end of it. Do you know that? We get to read the end of the book. The end of the book is written down for us in the end of Revelation when Almighty God comes down from heaven and makes his home upon this earth with us forever and ever and ever. And there is no Satan, there is no sin, there is no suffering, there is no anything except the glory of God all over the earth. I know what the book of truth that God has inscribed says at the end. I win. Why? Because Jesus won. Because God won. And what we're going to do next couple weeks is we're just going to look. Because here's what's going to happen in this fourth vision. He's going to talk about Persia falling and Greek falling. He's just going to demonstrate. Israel's going to, listen, Daniel, Israel's going to be fine. I got to bring Jesus from it. Daniel doesn't know that, but Jesus has got to come from it. So I'm going to take care of my nation Israel. The Persians are going to fall. The Greeks are going to fall. It's going to be combat. There's going to be conflict. But I got this. We have more of the story than Daniel even did. And so fight as if you've already won, because you have. Be prepared to fight.